Welcome, everybody. Thank you for being here today. Let me just share my screen. Oops. Why is this all over here? Whoop.
Do you want to just,
I'm trying to enlarge this. Okay. Give me a second. Wait, this isn't the right. Huh. Something is the matter here. Give me a second. Huh. That's strange. Okay, well, I don't know where my first two slides are. Let me just go back. Okay, great. Here we go. All right, hopefully you can see this. Let's maximize.
Yes,
can you see it on your end? Okay.
Yes, I can.
So today we're going to talk about, this is not my front screen, but turning interviews into offers. You know, I just had a call, actually, my 11 o'clock call was with someone who was just on this topic. She was a scholarship winner when she was at Pace. She had amazing experience. She was a tech student, had some tech jobs, and she was getting interviews, which is the good news, but her interviews were just not turning into offers. So, and she was even hearing, she met the whole team, and she was hearing great things about, you know, from people, oh, we can't wait to, you know, work with you, we're going to advocate for you, and then they turned out going with someone else. So hopefully today we'll cover some things so that that won't happen to you, because it's very frustrating if you've spent the whole day with a company, either virtually or in person, and you're not hearing back, or what you're hearing is not positive. So I'm going to try, and this is more interviewing in COVID times. You know, my original, when I used to do this presentation, my master slide was that of a handshake, two people, you know, shaking hands, but we're in different times now. So what you'll get is something that looks more like this. So the agenda for today is introduction to interviews, what happens before the interview, the day of the interview, practice interview questions after the interview, and common interview mistakes. So because I have a lot of material to cover, I would appreciate it if you could hold your questions to the end. I'll be happy to take them, but it just will, I might answer them in the next slide if you just hold your questions. So just put them in a parking lot or write them down. So what's the purpose of an interview? What is the employer looking for? The employer, if you put on your recruiting hat, is, can you do this job? They want to know that you have the right skills, the right hard skills, such as teachable skills, Excel, Google Analytics, those kind of skills that are functionally related, and also the soft skills, if they need leadership or multitasking. They also want to know, will you do the job? What's your motivation? Are they trying to ascertain whether this is one of many, many companies and you just don't care? You know, you're just looking for a job. They're trying to see how much passion you have, and are you really motivated to work for their company? And finally, they're trying to find out something which is the hardest for a recruiter to do, and are you a good fit? Because personality is important, and every company has a culture. We'll talk about that a little later. And when people don't work out, if it's not something for a major riff or COVID or something, it's usually because there's not a good fit in the company. And what are you looking for? Okay. You're looking to know, what is the corporate culture? As I just said, every company has their own culture. And even companies that seem to be in the same business have different cultures. So you want to find that out, because this is something that's going to be really important in your success. At one time, I did work when I was in leadership development for HBO and Viacom, And you would think that they were in the same business, they should have similar corporate cultures, but it couldn't be different. Viacom, you need to make a decision, important decisions right away, and HPO, they wanted you to be there for a while. So corporate culture is important. Will I work well with my manager? So important for you to try to figure out, because while you might be saying, I just need a job, never diminish the importance of who that your leader is, who the manager is, because they can make or break you. People leave managers, they don't leave companies. So that person is, even though it's a terrific company, and I've had this happen to me once, if the manager doesn't get you and they're not somebody who's going to endorse you, that's not going to be a good thing. And are there opportunities for advancement? So as you see here, it's a two-way street. And many of you might be feeling a little bit desperate, especially, with COVID times. I don't blame you, but really you need to know these things. You need to be able to ask these things, because if you don't and the job doesn't work out, you're just going to have more of a gap, more things to explain on your resume. And it's sort of debilitating when you got a job and it only lasts for a short while and it wasn't the right one. So remember, it's a two-way street, even though they seem like they're holding all the power. So what can you do before the interview? Preparation is key. Your resume, you want to make sure that you are familiar with, even though it's your resume, that you're familiar with all your academic work and professional history. If you've gotten to the point of the interview, then congratulations, you have an effective resume, or else you wouldn't be getting an interview. But you want to refresh yourself about what you put on that resume, because you might have written it a while ago. The job. You want to make sure that you know the job description, something about the company and the industry, and yourself, your personality, interests, skills, values, and goals, and accomplishments. This is a sales campaign, and you're selling yourself. So the more prepared you are to be able to know yourself and be able to sell yourself, that's going to be better than any other kind of preparation that you can make. And in my last two, well, particularly the seminar that I gave 2 months ago about personal branding, you might want to, I think that's recorded, I'm pretty sure, you might want to just take a look at that PowerPoint that I sent that is on the Alumni Relations website. So knowing yourself, I'm just going to review that a little. So these are your key strengths, your skills, your abilities, knowledge, and personality traits that you want to highlight for this particular company. You want to develop examples that demonstrate that. So it's not enough to say, I'm a natural born leader. You need to say, for instance, in every place I go, I just seem to rise to leadership positions, and give some examples. Because without the examples, what you're saying, just saying words about yourself, is meaningless to an employer. There's no substance there. It doesn't hold weight. So the power of storytelling reinforces your brand. So if you have a little story, a little vignette about how you've demonstrated some of these skills that you're highlighting, that would be the best, because responsibilities are boring, and I say this all the time. People remember, I see many, many people in my job, but I sometimes don't remember their resume, but I'll remember a story about them, because a story is really, it cements your brand. Because the only way employer is just meeting you for the first time or maybe the second time. The only way they know how you're going to be in going forward in their company is to know what you've done before. And the way to prove yourself, to prove that you are who you say you are, is to tell them a story. Now, this is something that a lot of people don't mention, but I think it's important in preparation. Think about possible red flags in advance. Don't let someone catch you short-footed on something that might be raised in an interview. Don't hide your eyes to something that you know might be a problem. So think about, these are possible red flags. Your reason for leaving. Now it could be the company was downsized, a just general thing, or COVID is certainly, something that people understand, but it might be something else. They might talk about why you left a job a couple of years ago. They might question you. You had a terrific job. What made you leave? So you want to review your resume for that and think in advance about, okay, what can I say that doesn't talk about, you don't want to be negative to anybody that you work for, because if I hear you're negative about them, I might think you're going to, speak negatively about me as a future employer. But you want to have some logical reason why you left that job, either for no job or for another job. So think about this in advance. Also, gaps in your resume. If you have them, you need to explain them, and you need to explain them in a way that makes sense. Hopefully if you have a gap now during COVID, I did a talk about this, you want to be able to fill that if you don't have a job right away with either upskilling, getting more skills and knowledge, or doing some volunteer work or an internship, anything to fill that gap. Then it might be that you're overqualified. How would you answer that question? That's a whole story in itself, but many times people say, well, I'm not overqualified, I'm more than qualified. Because maybe you're in a situation now where you don't want to have a very political job. You just want to really do the best you can in a future job. But you have to have an answer for that. And lack of experience. If you have lack of experience, which somebody just asked me about yesterday, they were concerned about it. And maybe you could just say, yes, I haven't had experience. I don't have experience in exactly what you're asking for, but I've done something in the past that showed that I didn't have experience going into it, and I'm a quick learner, and I was able to just, be successful in that. But whatever these are, whatever you feel that might be your red flags, think about them in advance. You don't want to just have to start, thinking about them within the interview, because the interviewer is going to lose confidence in you, and it's going to be, it won't be a great outcome. So skills that employers look for in general. They look for oral and written communication, people skills, relationship building, leadership and management, teamwork, critical thinking, adaptability and flexibility. Certainly in this day and age, you don't know what's coming around the corner. So I think that's important at almost every job. Creativity, and a knowledge and proficiency in your field of study. So you might want to, just take a look at this list later and think about where you demonstrate these skills. And as I said, if you can tell a story about them, that's going to be more important than just saying you have it. That's meaningless. So then you want to know the job. What are the core responsibilities? What are they asking for? So what I would suggest that you do is take the job, and you can highlight it or underline it, take your resume, and maybe on a separate piece of paper, show the parallels of where you've done that, where you've, where how Adobe Photoshop, how Dreamweaver, your technical skills. Anything that the job description is asking for, you want to make sure that you have that, or make a best case for it. And I suggest on the day of the interview that you have the job description in front of you. You kind of clear your desk of everything else. You have the job description in front of you, and you have your resume in front of you, and you have something to take notes with. Because I think it's always a good, even if you're a person, to take notes. If I'm telling you something as an employer that's important, like you've asked a question and I'm telling you something, you're not writing it down, it's going to make, me wonder whether you're really going to remember it or if it's important to you. But now, certainly a lot of these job interviews are virtual, so you can certainly take notes. And you want to know the company. And how do you know the company? The company website, of course, is a great way to, find out about the company. You want to look on LinkedIn. Annual reports and press releases are terrific about, knowing the company culture, the direction. There's usually in the beginning of a report, the presidents, the CEOs has a little thing about where the company is going, what they think about their people, how they're treating people, at least from their perspective. And also, if you're a financial person, you want to look at the numbers, right? You don't want to go in and ask for a job as a financial analyst if you have no idea what their numbers are or what the trends are, okay? And certainly, one of the better ways to know the company culture, aside from things like Glassdoor, where you get a lot of disgruntled people, you don't really get a lot of happy people that are reporting, are your inside contacts. Any friends, family. This is where networking comes in, and I'm going to talk about that exclusively in the next month's session. Okay. The other thing you should get yourself ready for is the pitch. You know that the tell me about yourself question is going to come. It's usually the first thing that comes. It might be worded a little bit differently, but they want to know why you're here. What they want to, you have to have your little sales pitch, and you need to get that ready and practice it, targeted toward that particular company, because a pitch, for one company would be slightly different than another company. So here's one that's branded. Somebody knows about themselves. Throughout my career, I've turned data into actionable insights that drove substantial new revenue. In my last company, XYZ, I was awarded the recognition as Employee of the Year. The reason I'm excited to speak with you today is because of your outstanding reputation for data analytics. So that's how a pitch would be. It's saying your brand. So this person's brand is turning data into actionable insights to drive revenue. Okay, and so that's the brand that they're selling, as opposed to just a reciting your resume, because they've seen your resume. They probably have your resume in front of them. I went to Pace University, then I had jobs here, then I had a job here, but that's not saying really something about your brand. And if you need a reference for that, you can go to the talk that I gave about personal branding if you need a little more guidance that way. So the other thing you want to do, because 9 times out of 10 now, it's going to be online. You want to test your technology in advance. You want to download the software well in advance of the interview. Pick a location without any distractions. Okay, something where you're not going to be interrupted, because that would be, not a good thing. Where your family members, that's okay for a casual Zoom meeting where dogs and cats and family members are around, but not for an interview. You want to test your internet connection and make sure your battery is fully charged. You want to practice calls, call your friends, call your kids, call call somebody to run through it with you, make sure that you're coming across well. Close any streaming during the interviews, because it might slow down your connection. And, if you did that the night before, conduct a quick test in the morning to make sure that everything is working. So very important, particularly in this day and age, to do it. If you need help with the kind of camera, the kind of microphone to get, I'm really not the person to ask, but make sure that you have all the right equipment. If you're in a job search and you're going through, a number of interviews, you want to have no technical glitches if possible. Okay, so that's all before the interview. So the day of the interview. Well, you want to dress for success. So a lot of this is, pre-COVID, but some of it is still apropos now. So professional business dress for women. It might be from the waist up, folks, but maybe it'll feel more professional if you're fully dressed than if you have your gym shorts on underneath. it might be okay, but it's just how you feel. You might feel like you're in an interview if you are dressed for that. So dress conservatively. Men, a sports coat or tie, and personal grooming. You want to be neat and professional. Obviously, they can't smell your perfumes or colognes over the internet, but you don't want to chew gum. Oh, please don't chew gum or smoke. So you want to address appropriately for a particular industry. So if you're in the tech field and you know that everybody, or Google, I know particularly my daughter-in-law works for Google, they practically come in their pajamas. So when you're dressing, be slightly to the right, a little more conservative in the company. So if you're dressing for a tech company, I wouldn't suggest that you wear a three-piece suit, because remember, fit, you're not going to fit into that company culture. But I wouldn't wear something sloppy either. I might dress business casual would be what I would advise you. And in terms of the smoke or chew gum and all that, if you're prone to say like, or which many people are, try to do some coaching with someone around that, because it's very distracting when you go like this or like that, or if you use that as because you're nervous, try to have some personal coaching around that, or somebody to make you aware of it, so that you won't do that on the day of the interview. Okay. So you want to manage your time. Now, even though you're not getting anywhere, so thank goodness for that, you don't have to deal with the subways or public transportation, which is, always stressful. You still want to arrive or set your computer up to be on the Zoom call, even though they might not let you in on time, a little earlier. Before this call, Samantha and I got on 15 minutes earlier just to test everything, to, see how many people were registering, just to touch base with each other. So you don't want to come in rushed and turn on the computer in the last few seconds and find out something's not working. You want to be relaxed, and feel, your professional best. You want to be courteous to everyone in office. This goes the same thing. Anyone you're dealing with from that company, someone who's setting up the call with you, anyone you're talking to, you want to be courteous, even though there might be people levels below you or in a clerical position. People talk, and it's important that you are courteous. I want to make sure you turn your cell phones off. I know that gives people palpitations this day and age, but in fact, I didn't turn my toes. Make sure you turn your cell phones off. You don't want to be interrupted. No gum or food or drinks. We said that before. And you want to engage in a little small talk before, if they're open to it. Because I say this all the time, people make business decisions for personal reasons. And that whole thing of company fit, people want to know you're a human being too. You're not just a automaton reading off your resume and that you're a person, and they want to be treated the same way. Saying like, "How was your day?" or "How are you doing?" or "Are you working from home?" or just talking to them like you would a real person, because they have their own issues with this COVID or their own family. So not for a long time, but just be personable and follow the lead of the interviewer. If they're a little chattier at the beginning, then you can be. If they're very stern and want to get right to the point, then you have to do that. And don't bring up salary in that first interview. Please do not bring up salary. I know salary is important to everyone. Many of you are living in New York. You've got to pay your rent, but salary is important. But whoever talks about salary first loses. I always talk about, in my talks about salary, the 4-step salary negotiation. The first is to try to grow the job. So let's say the salary that they've listed is a little bit lower than you need to have. So if they give you a chance, you're going to try to grow the job, right? Right now, salary, you have no leg to stand on. You're totally a stranger. They have no vested interest in you. You're just meeting them for the first time. As you go through the interview process, you're going to be able to see what they really need in the company and possibly grow it. You know, if they're looking from A to D, but you bring a much bigger wealth of experience, maybe the job description will change. Maybe you can grow the job description. Secondly, you'll be able to kill the competition, because as the interviews go on, they're going to eliminate people. So you're going to be, you know, maybe on the short list. Then you're going to get the offer. And then when you get the offer and they've kind of eliminated and told all the other people that are interviewing, or except for maybe one or two people behind you, that, you know, that they gave them the negative thing, then, only then will you have the power to negotiate salary. So please don't bring up salary. When you're dealing with a recruiter, they're going to ask you right off the bat, you know, what do you need? What are you making? You can't avoid that. And that's the downside of working with a recruiter. But try to give a range, you know, 40 to 60, with the bottom of the range, the number that you could accept, not the number that you would accept and then you'd have to get a second job. So just a short thing about salary negotiation, but don't bring it up if don't initiate that yourself. Okay, here, this is more for pre-COVID. Hopefully we'll get back to this. Just want to quickly review it. If I don't speak to you and you get that far, and we're doing this after the vaccine, you want a firm handshake, professional appearance and dress, make eye contact, you know, have body language and posture, you know, your facial expressions open and happy, and all this about your voice, pace, and volume. But when we're talking about interviewing, the way we're going to have to interview now, probably, try to look up every once and then. I forget this myself because I'm looking at my PowerPoint, but you want to look into the camera, you know, not look down on the screen, even if it's just occasionally, to make eye contact with the people out there, because that's important, that personal interaction. And try to smile. So here are the different types of interviews. There's a telephone interview, which was certainly much more prevalent right before COVID, because it's a way, a more inexpensive way of screening people, so they don't have to pay for, you know, bringing people into the office or taking up people's time, you know, other higher up people in the organization. There's the one-on-one question and answer, which is the most you know, common form of interviewing. There's the panel and group, which is also a common practice. And for this one, you know, I urge you to write down the people's names, because you'll forget, and you might have to do, you know, you want to put in, if you can, individual follow-up letters to them. So try to put their name and title so that you know who you're addressing and what their different issues are. There's a high stress and case study. I don't hear about this high stress that much anymore. I really don't see the need for it unless the job calls for it. I don't see why people would put you through that kind of thing unless that's, you know, it's a necessity on the job. I'd be interested in Q&A if people have had high stress interviews and what kind of job that they were interviewing for. Then, of course, this probably won't be the case anymore. It might be virtual. The dining, lunch, dinner, or coffee used to be more about, will you fit in? You know, and that was an important way for a recruiter to see what you're like in, you know, personal interactions. And I always tell people, don't order the, you know, barbecue ribs because that's not, it's hard to control. But I don't think that's going to be that much of an issue now. And then there's informational interviews, which we're going to talk about when we talk about networking next week. Okay. So the virtual interviews, many more people now are using this one-way interview. I don't know if any of you've had them. I had a woman the other day who had one on Higher View. There's two different types, Spark, Higher, and Higher View. And this is where they give you a text messages, and you have a certain amount of time. They're timed, your answer, and you're speaking into the computer. They don't really give you a lot of advanced warning of what those questions will be. And it's really tough because all the burden is on you. It's like me doing this. I don't have any feedback from you, so I don't know if I'm way off the base or not. I would find these very difficult. the client that I was dealing with did too, but I want you to know that they're out there, and to, you know, not be shocked if that's what the first interview round is on one of these two vehicles. And then there's a live, you know, interview similar to this. There's Zoom and Skype. So that's probably what you're going to encounter, but be aware that there's one-way interviews also. But to any of these, bring your A game, extra energy. I mean, it's hard when you're sitting in front of a screen to really act animated. You don't have any feedback from people, even if, you know, it's on a screen. Sometimes people suggest doing some jumping jacks, some push-ups, something that's going to get your energy going. I used to do jumping jacks before I had these corporate presentations, just to get my energy and to get less nervous. So make sure you're bringing your extra energy, because, you know, this is the real thing. This could lead to a job. You know, I said before in the resume interview last week, your resumes can only get you the interview, but it's the interviews can get you the job. Okay. So the types of interview questions, there's the open-ended question, tell me about yourself, which you're all going to be ready for. There's the close-ended, are you currently employed? That's obviously a yes, no. Behavioral-based, tell me of a time you faced a challenge. Now, if you did the things that we talked about in branding, where you talked about your times when you did something well, or just, you know, reviewed that, these are going to be easier for you, because you're going to have all those times that you want to talk about on your fingertips. So tell me a time you face a challenge. That's an important one. And sometimes if it's job related, there's going to be something analytical. How many times a day do a clock's hands overlap? It should be, you know, hopefully they're doing it because that is tangential to what kind of a job you're going to be looking at. And the technical questions, how familiar you are with Excel. And certainly for anybody who's coming out of Seidenberg, the technical questions are going to be more important, and hopefully you'll bone up on that. You'll have those will be easy for you. So here's our power words. When you're in an interview, even if you're scared out of your mind, and you know you're tentative, you don't want to say, I think, if, I might be, I hope, I try, I'll try, right? You want to be confident. I know, when, definitely, I will, I am. And if this is like a role you're playing, so even if you don't feel that way, you have to act that way. Because think about it, you know, as a recruiter, I'm at risk also. I don't want to hire the wrong person. That makes me look bad. So the more you can instill confidence that you can do it, even if you've never done it before, but if you use these words, I know I can, when I get on board, I'm going to do it. I definitely can. Any of these will instill confidence in the recruiter to send you to either the next level of interviews or a job offer if they're a hiring manager. So a lot of people don't think that the employer is at risk here too. So there's always a question behind the question, right? Tell me about yourself. What are your key skills and attributes? That's what they're asking about. Make sure you have this concise. You don't want to start, don't want to ask for direction. Well, what do you mean? Do you want me to start in kindergarten? Do you want me to start in high school? If you ask for direction, that's not a good thing. You should have that pitch baked already, right? That's what you want in advance of the interview. What is your greatest weakness? I hate this question. So what they're asking is, what do you struggle with? And it's more importantly, what have you done to overcome it? I really wouldn't be that forthright about your weakness. It's a weakness that can easily be turned into a strength. You know, I tend to work too hard, or I tend to, to want to keep everything close to home because, I'm just, I'm always afraid that somebody won't have the same level of responsibility that I do. Where do you want to be in 5 years? Do you set long-term goals? Are you driven and motivated? What did you most or least enjoy about your last job? That's a very good question. You should think that through. So what they're asking is, will you be a good fit for our company? Do you focus on the positive or negative? So, you want to minimize what you least enjoyed unless you know something about this company that they don't have that at all. It's not apropos to them. But you want to focus on what you enjoyed and what you want to continue to enjoy with that you know about their company that company will offer you. So they want you to, most people want you to be a positive person. So what happens if they ask a question? I was just discussing this before, and you don't know exactly what to say. You need some time, or you need to kind of, you just want to know what's behind that question before you go off in the wrong direction. So this woman I was just telling you about who didn't, I don't know if she's on this call, but she didn't get the job offer from an interview. They asked her to do some kind of a graph, and she just assumed it was one kind of graph. And then they said, at the end, no, we were thinking about something different. So if you aren't sure, the old consultant's question is, would you say more about this? There's nothing wrong with saying that, and what you could find out is what is the question that they're really asking. Some interviewers are not good. They'll ask you questions that you have no idea what they're talking about. So a good way to do it, you don't want to say ha or repeat that. Say, would you say more about this? It's a very good technique to buy some time and to find out what they're really asking about. So you want to practice. Tell me about yourself. We talked about a pitch before. Here's another one. I'm a business development professional with over 10 years experience in consumer products industry. I pride myself in always having met or exceeded sales goals. In my last company, I was selected as salesperson of the year, having exceeded my goals by 200%. The reason I'm excited to talk to you today is because I know you are the leader in the industry and have an excellent reputation of allowing employees to reach their potential. Now that's a good pitch. So tell me about yourself. You want to outline your school, your year, your major, the area of interest, and relevant experience. That would be at the very least. If you can do a branded pitch, like I just mentioned, that would be a little bit better. I hope you realize the difference. Okay. Behavioral interview questions. Give me an example of how you utilized your organizational skills. Tell me about a time you had to handle difficult situations with someone. What is the greatest decision you had to make within the last 6 months? Describe a time when you successfully balanced competing priorities. These are very common questions. I have a list of 16 commonly asked questions with answers that I will send to Samantha if you're interested. And if you don't mind, Samantha, I'm speaking for you. Maybe you can disseminate them along with the PowerPoint if people want it.
Definitely.
Okay. So here's the STAR technique. You're nervous, and how are you going to talk about your, what you did? So a good technique is to think of STAR. So how to phrase your accomplishments, okay? What was the situation you faced? What task you were assigned or assumed? What action did you take, and what was the result? So your situation, the task, your action, and result. So here's a practice. Give me an example of how you utilized your organizational skills. I faced a challenge during my first year as a graduate student at Pace University. My teacher assigned a project that required advanced Excel skills, but I only knew basic. I scheduled appointments with my professor to identify skills I needed to improve, and then I went to the tutoring center to receive additional help. And once I learned the skills, I was able to complete the project and earn 97%. Okay, so that's a way to structure your answers. Just describe a time when you successfully balanced priorities. So the situation, the task, the action, and the result. This is that specific question. Okay, so I hope that might help you. It might help you control your nervousness. So you start on and on and on, and you see the employer's eyes rolling back in their head, or they start to make notes or drift off. You've lost them. So you want to be concise with your answers, and that's a good framework to be concise with your answers. So, I'm moving along quickly, but please write down your questions. Now, here's some questions for you to the employer. Remember, it's a two-way street. If you don't, that's something that you should prepare in advance, if you can, because You want to have good questions, not questions like, what do you people do? I've heard people actually say this in 2020, where there's Google, at least Google, to know who these people, you know, what the company is doing. So you want to have more sophisticated questions. This is one of my favorites. Okay, this can turn your interview into an offer. At the beginning, somewhere in the beginning, if you can ask the employer, what is your vision of a successful candidate? Or if I'm successful in 6 months, what will that look like? This is a great question because every employer has a vision of success in their heads. And actually, as they go through the interview process, that vision can change a little as they meet people and see what they can, you know, sort of what's out there. So you want to be able to have them articulate that. Because during your interview questions, you can give examples that speak to that. But B, at the end, when you're almost finished with your interviewing, you can say something like, you mentioned at the beginning, you're telling the recruiter now, you said that your vision of a successful candidate is A, B, and C. As you can see, I hope you see, I've demonstrated that I have A, B, and C. Do you agree with me? So do you concur? You want to wrap it up for them so that they are sort of caught in their own trap, that they articulated that this was their vision and you are that vision. So what more can they ask for, right? Or maybe they'll tell you, well, you're not really, and they'll raise some objections, which is good for you to know because maybe you can tell them right then that you do have this and give another example. Because a lot of people don't want to hear that. They'd rather go away dumb and happy, that they feel that they did well, and then they're going to be disappointed when they don't get the job. So this gives you a way to sort of tell them how you match what their vision is, see if they agree with you, raise any objections that they might have to your candidacy that you can either overcome then or in a follow-up. Please describe the training and evaluation process, important for you to ask. What type of supervision will I receive, if that's appropriate? Are there opportunities for career advancement? It's important for you to voice that you're interested in getting ahead, you're ambitious. And what is the work atmosphere like in your company? So to give you some sense of it, if you have a chance to ask that. But what is your vision of a successful candidate is my personal favorite. And what are the next steps in the interview process? You're going to assume that you want to close. So you want to assume that you're good, you're successful, and you're going to get to those next steps. So you want to know that. You also want to know where they are in the process. Are you the first one that they're seeing and they're going to interview for the next month? Or are you somewhere, in the middle? You want to know where they are in that process. If you're the first one and they say that to you, the first one of two, we're going to be seeing another 25 people, you might want to say, if you have, it shows some confidence, that would it be possible to review my candidacy with you a little bit later on, because I'm sure your vision is going to change. And, I'm really excited about this job. I really want to have the best shot. Because you're really, usually disadvantaged if you're the first one. Okay, don'ts. Do not ask or answer questions about age, race, sexual orientation, religion, marital status, children, or what we talked about before, salary or benefits. It's not the time. You will get a chance to do that later on after you get the offer. The others are just illegal. So follow-up begins at the end of the interview. You always ask two questions at the end of the interview. Are you interviewing other candidates? How do I measure up against the others you're seeing? If they don't want to tell you, they don't want to tell you, but this is good for you to know. And how do you feel about moving my candidacy forward? Similar to what I just said before, the recruiter should be able to at least fudge these answers, right? They might have hated you from the beginning, but at least they can say, well, I'm not that sure. At least you can see from their answers then whether you think you have a good shot at moving it ahead. Okay. This is always a sales thing. The sales begin after the customer tells you what their objections are. So like I said, while it might feel better to walk away dumb and happy, it doesn't turn interviews into offers. So after the interview, you thank the interviewer or viewers for their time. You won't be able to get maybe a paper, an actual business card, but you want to get their contact information. Very important. It's important for, writing to them. It's also important to keep them as part of your network, because let's say you don't get this job, but you were, you met all the people, you were a close second or third. You want to be able to revisit that. Maybe the person they hired didn't work out, or if they liked you enough, maybe something has changed in their company and you want to be able to swing back to them. You want to make some notes to yourself, do some what you did well and what you could have done better. You always want to make this a learning process. Always send what they're calling a thank you email within 24 hours and follow that up. Now, I don't like the idea of a thank you. I think, a thank you note is for your aunt. Thank you for your time. I enjoyed you. You enjoyed me. I mean, it doesn't really move the needle forward at all. So what I like to call it is an influence note. You want to reinforce your enthusiasm for the job, restate your skills and experience. And if they said to you, wow, you really were, I really liked how you did such and such, you can restate that and say, I'm glad that you noticed that I had so-and-so. It's always better if you're taking it from the horse's mouth, if they said something positive to you, than if you're just saying, just a reiteration of your skills and experience. Remind them of your value and include information you forgot to mention in the interview. As I said, if maybe one of their objections were that you didn't have experience in such and such, and you go away and you want to kick yourself because, wow, that's right, 5 years ago I've done that. I have some experience in that. Then you might want to say, oh, I forgot to mention, or I just want to mention that I do have experience about what we talked about, and then say it there. So I like the idea of an influence note. I just like you positioning it that way in your mind, that you're trying to do something with this, not just be courteous. It's nice to be courteous, but you need to do more. And for some senior people where they do interview like a consultant, sometimes they even have to put a little proposal in for something that the company is asked about. That you found a need in your interviewing by asking a lot of questions, and you want to write a little proposal. Common interview mistakes: not researching, preparing, or practicing, not having clear goals or direction, not providing evidence and examples. Those are those stories that I was talking about. You just can't just say a skill without backing it up, and an ability to express thoughts clearly. So the more you think about it, the more you practice, the better you'll get at that. So that means you. So just in closing, one important key to success is self-confidence. And an important key to self-confidence is preparation. And that was Arthur Ashe. So with that, I'm going to stop sharing and leave the room open for questions.
So I didn't see anything in the chat box, but if folks want to, if you don't feel comfortable speaking, you can absolutely write in the chat box and I'll read it out.
I couldn't have been that clear. This is a good, safe place to ask these questions.
Oh, are we going to receive the deck? Yes, so you will receive, Marilyn will send me information and I'll send that to you in the thank you note.
Mm-hmm.
As well
And
as
I'll send those, send those interview questions, the interview questions and answers. It doesn't cover every interview question, but it will, I think it will help you.
So
I have a question.
Oh,
Yes.
okay.
So one of the points that you brought up was, why are you leaving your current employer?
Mm-hmm.
During COVID-19, I think many companies are struggling with revenue and downsizings and the like, but there's been no real plan for the company to actually, go through all of that. And you don't want to find yourself on the outside. How do you handle that? So the company's doing okay, but you're concerned about a possible real serious downturn that could affect you yourself. And how do you relay that to a future employer? Like, are you bailing out on the company that you've been with? And so like in my case for, 10 years, how do you justify just like walking away when they're having a hard time?
Yeah, no, it's hard. So I think you have to preface it with saying you meet their concern right on, what they would be thinking. I've been a loyal employee with my, for my company. I'm somebody who's very loyal, for the last 10 years. I know just being inside the company that they're having difficulties. And I would be doing myself a disservice if I would waiting to the last minute. So I'm trying to find opportunities for myself. I'm not leaving yet, but I just want to find opportunities and see what's out there. Otherwise, I'm doing a disservice to myself, and I can't afford to do that to myself or my family or whatever obligations that I have. But generally I'm disloyal, but I'm a loyal person. But you all know in COVID what's happening, and hopefully the company that just make sure the company that you're talking to isn't having that same difficulty, because you'll just find yourself in a worse shape than you are now. So let's say you're going from wherever you are now to Zoom, or a company that's has a silver lining because of what's going on, that there can't possibly, oh no, there's no such thing as can't possibly, but they just seem stronger, right? I don't think anybody would feel that they would all do that themselves. But I would preface by saying I've been a loyal employee, and that's who I am. Okay.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So there's one in the chat box, which it's not really in the form of a question, but I think there could be a question out of it. It's someone said, people/interviewers always ask about my religion because it's obvious. So I wonder too, if someone does do that and you feel like it's done in a negative way, how do you pivot?
I think you just say, I don't think that's really relevant to, the job or how I'm going to perform this job. So, I like to, unless you do, and I'd like to just move on to my capabilities.
And then someone said for salary, if the company doesn't list salary and you don't want to go through the entire interview process and waste time, can you ask a salary range up front?
I wouldn't do it. I mean, unless your time is so precious that, if you've gotten an opportunity to interview, you never know. Maybe you're applying to a job and it is too low level salary, but you've had the opportunity to be in front of people, to talk to people. And this has happened so many times where someone comes in for a job that's really not appropriate. They're at a higher level, they should be paid more. And they say, gee, I don't think you're going to be happy as an employer. I would say, I don't think you're going to be happy with this job at this level, but there's another job that is here, in another department that I think is a better fit for you. And it's at a higher level and a higher salary. So you can turn this into a networking thing. You can turn it into another opportunity. And as I said, if it's something that's not totally, they're paying 20 and you need 150, but if it's something in range, you can try to grow the job as you learn more. If they give you the opportunity to talk to the next person, or, as you're speaking, you learn more about their needs, and they find out, wow, you can make this a bigger job, then the salary would be commensurate with the job you land on, not the job that you started with. But you don't have power until you get an offer. And then you negotiate base. You always negotiate your base salary first and everything else afterwards. So I know it sounds like a waste of time, but it's also a waste of time to, what people do is just apply online and not try to network or any way into a company. And they waste so many hours just doing that. And so, only 10% of people get, I hope you're not doing that interview, because only 10% of people get jobs that way. It's very alluring. So don't think of it as a waste of time. Think of it as an opportunity to learn something and to practice.
And then related to salary, how do you handle it when the interviewer brings up salary on the first interview?
Okay, so if you're forced to the wall and you can't be mute, you have to say something. What you can say is you turn it to them first and say, what salary are you thinking about? What is the range? And they're going to say, they're going to give you a range. If they don't, and they turn it back to you again, so now you have a gun pointed at your head, right? You've got to say something. You give them a range, but be sure that the lowest number, if you say 40 to 60, they're only going to hear 40, right? And that has to be something that you're comfortable with. Don't say something that you're not comfortable with because you're wasting everyone's time. And if they give a range, because if they give a range and they say 40 to 60, you repeat back 60, because of course you should be worth the higher number. So that's how you do it. But hopefully, you know, if you're forced to, that's how you do it. And unfortunately, when you work with, you know, as I said, when you work with third-party recruiters, you need to discuss that with them because that's how they, you know, they make their money based on your base salary.
So someone, a quick one, can you do a webinar on networking? And the answer is yes.
And you should mention that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. So coming up on November 17th, that's going to be the topic for the webinar on the 17th. I know it's not on the website yet, but it is going to be there shortly, and you can register for it then, but we'll make sure that we send out information to everyone, and I can send out a special message to you folks as well about it. But yes, the November 17th one is going to be all about networking. And then the other question, is it okay to ask about department/organizational structure?
Yeah, why not? I mean, if you can't find that, like, remember, you're asking questions that are not readily available somewhere else. So I would try to get that through the annual report sometimes gives you that, or the company, well, annual report would be the best place to look for that. But if you can't find that, and that's important for whatever job it is, at least get the organizational structure in your area. I mean, if it's a big Fortune 500 company, they're not laying that all out for you, but it might be important to know who you're going to report to and who they report to, and, you know, some vision of that, the people around you, I think is more salient kind of information that you need, as opposed to a whole org chart, unless they want to send you an org chart, which I doubt. They certainly wouldn't give you the names in there.
And we are just coming up on the hour mark now. Do we have any other questions? Maybe we have time for maybe one more. Oh, someone said they have a question. Yes, so the short answer to the can you access past webinars on the website? Yes, you can. I will make sure the link is in the thank you note that you all receive, but yes, it's on the website. And then someone said I have a question. Did you want to ask it? Okay. Sure. Oh, all right. So I guess, Marilyn, do you have any closing thoughts then?
No, just I, wish all you well. I hope your interviews do turn into offers. And, I hope you join us on November 17th, I think, for networking, because I always say networking is your net worth. So it really will help you. Like if you don't have, let's say, enough experience or whatever, sometimes if you network into a company, a lot of the must-haves on a job description go away because, people know who you are. So I hope you join me later, and I hope you got something out of this. And, any questions, just, send them in. So good luck to everybody. Be safe. Be well.
Thank you. You too.
All right. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.